probably right.
Yeah, you're not gonna survive that one. You're gonna have to, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Leave it open. Leave it open. Oh, but that's a knocking.
No.
Okay. Last week, you can leave it open. Last week we were talking about, what were we talking about?
We started off talking about, blessing.
You
We
can
were
go
talking
on.
about in regards to what blessing was. We talked about a lot.
Okay.
Come on, Janice.
Yeah. Go ahead. We went
I
to
can't remember
blessing.
anything.
Huh?
You talking about come on, Janice? I can't remember anything.
Then I talked about some things concerning the whole concept of healing your own body versus healing versus cure. That healing and cure are two different things, and I did not get into the whole idea of how that works. Maybe I need to touch that. What do you think? Then we'll begin talking about the whole idea of the secret gospel of John.
Oh, okay. You sure you don't want that book? I can go get it.
No. I read it. I just didn't bring mine. That's all.
Okay. You read the whole thing?
Pretty much. It's almost a repeat. Yeah. What I want to talk about. Where's Faith?
They called to practice again.
Oh, okay. I wanted to congratulate the old boy.
He thought he was good. He was a little upset.
Yeah. All right. When we talk about the whole concept of who we are and how we are constructed in a physical way, we began to see how simple it is for us to rise above adverse circumstances, be they emotional or physical. And one of the reasons it is so difficult for us to not only come to grips with who we are, grasp who we are, and to rise rather above the adverse circumstances in a physical and emotional way, is because we have been spiritually robbed or spiritually raped. And the robbery took place when we were given the Bible that we were given. And to reiterate that, I know I made mention of it last week, but I want to do it again so we can all be clear about this. When we talk about the Bible that we were given, we're talking about the 66 books that were chosen by the bishops in the 12th century. And at that juncture, all of the other books were abandoned, but they were not destroyed. The bishops, if the books were of no value, and if, as they put it, through prayer, they were led to choose the books that they chose, if that is true, then why did they preserve the others? Now, they burned everyone else's, but they preserved the ones that they had in their possession, and to this day, they're still in the Vatican. And there were efforts made by the Christians to preserve the other books. And the efforts that were made, they hid them in different places. And not only did they hide them in different places, but they had to flee for their lives. And many of them fled to Turkey. And during the period of the Inquisition, when everyone was required by the Pope to convert to Catholicism or die, a huge number of Christians were protected in what is now known as Turkey. And they were protected by the Prophet Muhammad. So, and contrary to popular belief, Muhammad believed that you are supposed to not only protect but to feed the stranger that's in your midst. And that's why all Jews and Christians were protected by Muhammad. And the books that were, for lack of a better term, deleted from the others were the books that were most spiritual in nature. In other words, they were the books that delved deeply into a spiritual understanding of not so much the earth as much as us. How we came to be who we are and how we're supposed to function as the people that, or as the entities, I should say, that we are. And when those books were taken away, we began to lose our sense of purpose. We began to lose our sense of self. And we truly lost our sense of I am. And the I am became something separate from us, as did Elohim, as did Yahweh. Everything was something separate from us. And at that point, we were relegated to being inferior to everything that's spiritual, not quite measuring up regardless of what our desires were. So as a result of that, we began to experience tremendous sickness and disease that we were not able to contend with. But let me hasten to say that this did not take place until the Europeans began to move into the rest of the, at that time, uninvaded world, because it was an invasion. And the indigenous people were able to deal with the health problems that they faced. Actually, they were not problems because they knew how to deal with them, not just through the herbs in the field, but also from a sense of who they are through meditation, the medicine man, etc. And with the advent of Catholicism, which is another way of saying the Europeans coming into the world, the different worlds, invading the areas where the indigenous people that those areas lived, they brought also diseases with them. And I think it is interesting to note that there were more Native Americans who died from a common cold than there were who died from anything else prior to the entrance of Europeans. The common cold was unknown to them. There are several diseases that were unknown. So the question I raised very quickly is, if the indigenous people were able to do this, then why is it that everywhere they went, meaning people from Europe, when they went to invade these places, why is it that they carried disease and the diseases were not already there? So where did their diseases come from? No one, to my knowledge, ever asked that question. Where did the diseases come from that they had, that were carried into these places? Are you following me?
Mm-hmm. Is that a rhetorical question?
Not really. I mean, think about it. I have an idea of where they came from, but I want to hear what you think.
I think the diseases actually came from their lack of spirituality and actually knowing who they were, because there was a disconnect, or basically a sin, which just means that there was a clog and something that needed to be loose, etc. And so that's why these particular diseases existed. And of course, they would have been only focused on the material realm, but all of these things, they can be affected on more so of a spiritual realm. So I think the physical was, in this particular case, was just a reflection of, I I don't want to say that lack of spiritual, because it wasn't necessarily a lack of spiritual, it was just a lack of understanding the spiritual nature that, and recognizing the spiritual nature of that they were.
Spiritual uncleanness, spiritual impurity, spiritual darkness. Diseases are a manifestation of that. That's what I believe that's where it came from, because the scripture says that the word was sent for the healing of all flesh, and we take that to mean the flesh, that's the skin, the body, but that's not what it means. It's talking about nature. So if your nature is infected, then your body will manifest that infection. If your nature being your perception of things, your attitude about things, the way you deal with life itself, if this part of you is infected, it manifests in the body no different than if you are depressed, it has a physical manifestation. Yes.
So are you saying it just starts with the thought?
Yes, it does. Everything does. It starts with the thought or the denial of truth. And think about this now. The denial of truth did not start with Catholicism. It was long before that. The corruption of truth did not start with Catholicism either. It was long before that. Because we see very evidently the corruption of truth right there in the scriptures. When it talks about, in, I think it's the 64th to 65th chapter of Isaiah, when it says that to kill an ox like killing a man. I did not command you to make sacrifices, but they did it anyway, and they wrote a law pertaining to sacrifices when they were not told to do that. That in itself is the corruption of the truth. But we are so blind to that because though we understand that there was a suppression of what was really written in the book, and we were given what could be controlled, even though we understand that we have a tendency to discount the reality of the results. And the reality of the results is no different than if you were in public school and all of a sudden all of the algebra books, all of the geometry and trigonometry, all these mathematics is taken away except simple math. Now, no one knows advanced mathematics except a core group of people. So now we can control you because you only know basic math. Now, when you begin to understand that there's more to it than this, what happens? You begin to petition through thought, through organizing, but you begin to fight for, to search for the advanced understanding of mathematics. Now, if you take that and put the scriptures in that place or see it through those eyes, then what you see is that those 66 books were chosen because there was a sense that we could control this by virtue of how we interpret it. And all the others, Thomas, Mary, all the other books were not allowed to be there because it was much more difficult to control them, and it would have given access to a spiritual understanding beyond anything that they would have been able to control. Are you understanding this? Let me say. So when that's why, see, we think that the Inquisition was about only forcing people to believe in Catholicism, right? Mm-hmm. That's not true. The Inquisition was about relegating everyone's thoughts, or should I say, not relegating, subordinating everyone's thoughts to that of the Pope. Whatever Catholicism says you're supposed to believe, that's it. So when they came in contact with indigenous people and they had an understanding of spiritual things, that allowed them to be able to do things beyond our imagination at where we are now. What happened? They began to kill those people, and they began to force those people to accept what they believe. Example: when the Catholics went into South America, primarily into the area of the Mayans, the first thing that they started doing was burning the literature, destroying the libraries, killing the medicine men, the people of wisdom. They killed. They destroyed all of that, and they did it because they knew if they left it intact, then these people at some juncture, at some point in their lives, would be able to reach back into their history and become the people that they were prior to the invasion. Now, it was so successful because what they did, they would take the children and they would kill children in front of their parent or kill the people who resisted. And what happened? Mom says, I don't want my child to be killed. So what does mom do? Mom teaches the child Catholicism. So by the fourth generation, it's accepted.
William Lynch did the same thing.
Same thing?
William Lynch?
Yeah, same thing. Same principle.
Yeah. It's something else too, though. If you have your child just accepting Catholicism for the purpose of survival and basically getting along and not dying, etc., that completely changes the entire purpose. And of course, this is not effectively how religion is used, but the true purpose of a religion or belief, anything like that, is to basically to help someone to transcend who they are or their understanding of who they are spiritually, etc. So if you even approach it from that standpoint, it completely makes that void. It takes that entire important aspect out of it. So I mean, it's the same thing, for example, when you look at a lot of the slaves that were brought to this country, or you look at Haiti or pretty much any other country that was colonized and the people were forced to believe in a religion. What was their purpose of doing it? Was it for survival, or was it actually truly seeking within themselves to find something? I can ask family members, I don't, but I pretty much figure this out in others. I can ask family members, why do they follow a certain belief? And they would not be able to give me a coherent answer.
And by virtue of that, what happened? Not only was the culture weakened, but the manifestation of the weakened culture was the disease and sickness in the body. All of these things were that was manifested by virtue of what was an accepted belief. When you look at that and you see how that whole thing was done through Catholicism, and how these people were forced to believe in something that they knew was not the truth, but as you said, Sheldon, they did it for survival. Now, when you look at that, think about it this way, if you will. The root of Christianity as we know it is Catholicism, isn't it? As it is practiced in this country, the root of it is Catholicism. This is something that's interesting to me. Every Catholic nation that is of color lives in poverty. Irish Catholics don't live in poverty. Spanish Catholics don't live in poverty.
Why?
All people of color who adhere to Catholicism, every single nation lives in poverty. Why?
The Catholic Church sucks out the resources.
Sucks out all the resources. When you think about it, Catholicism puts the European in a driver's seat for all resources in the world. Now, let's fast forward to up to today. The birth of Christianity as we know it came from the womb of Catholicism, right? Every state that's known as a Bible Belt state is poor. Isn't it? Every state that the people live in poverty. So, if there is such what? Power and prosperity in these belief systems, then why is it that not only those that's rooted, but also those that bought into it, all of them live in poverty? That's something to think about, isn't it? Something else. When you look at what happened in this nation, the states who were the strongest in the Christianity that grew out of Catholicism were the slave states.
Say that again?
The states who were the strongest concerning Christianity, about Christianity, that grew out of Catholicism were the slave states. And what they will conflate is they will conflate the Quakers with Christians in the South, saying that the Christians in the North are the ones who fought slavery. But the Quakers in the North believed differently than the Christians in the South, than the slave state Christians did. So, but they conflate the two to make it look like they're one and the same when they really aren't. The beliefs are different. And one of the big differences that you would see is that up until, 1821, I want to say, it was against the law to practice Christmas in New England, in the New England states. Because it was considered a pagan holiday. So you see, you can't conflate the two. And when you think about it, the people who suffer the most are the people who have the same belief systems as did the people, as was forced upon the people in South America during the Inquisition. You say, what, they don't believe? Yes, they do. There has never been a change in doctrine of Christianity since it was introduced from the Catholics. It's the same doctrine, but it's presented a different way. So what am I saying to you? There is something wrong with this picture. The only ones that appear to live fairly comfortable are the ones who push the doctrine. But the ones who believe in it are the ones who don't fare too well. And I'm not just talking about money-wise. I'm talking about in terms of emotions, intellect, the whole 9 yards. It's like they're being manipulated. So I say all of that to say, if you take all of those things that have been uttered just in the last few minutes, and you see how they manifest in the body as sickness, whether it be emotional sickness or physical sickness. Can you see that? If you take just for example the idea of cancer, right? What is cancer? It's cells that has lost its direction. It doesn't know what it's supposed to be. So the stem cells keep producing, but they keep dying, and they don't become any part of any organ. They are confused. Those are cancer cells. Is that not the same thing that we are about truth? Confusion. So if you are confused about who you are, that confusion is not only replicated, but is manifested through your body, physically and emotionally. I mean, I believe, and call me crazy, it won't be the first time and probably not the last, but I believe that dementia, that Alzheimer's, all of these things are connected to a corruption of spiritual belief. confusion.
So how do you deal with this? I guess Carla is a good example because she's someone who's not confused about who she is.
Right.
But she's dealing with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're talking about is it can't be just like an individual thing. Like you have cancer because you're confused.
No.
It's not that.
See, you have cancer because mankind is confused. There's no such thing as what I do does not hurt anyone but me.
Okay.
That's not true. See, the difference, and that leads me, or that's a good segue to the difference between healing and cure. Her body, not her body, she can be healed of cancer, but not cured. Cure means it's gone. Healing means you're living with it. It does not affect your life in an adverse way. Example, she has not lost her hair. She has not lost her energy. She has not lost weight. So, but if she had lost all those symptoms that come into play, then that's not a healing. You see? But with those symptoms not coming into play, with her being who she is and living the way she does, that means that the healing has taken place. It will not progress beyond where it is. You see? Mm-hmm. Now, the healing is not her body. I'm sorry, the cure is not her body. The cure is in her perception of her body. Because it's the body, not her, who's experiencing cancer. See, she can live without the body. But the body can't live without her. Can you see that? So that's the difference. See, she has constantly said from the first day she got diagnosed 4 years ago, this is not for me. This is a battle I must fight for mankind. I don't understand why. I don't know. I don't understand how it's going to play out. It does not matter to me. If it plays out with me being buried, that's fine. It does not matter how it plays out. But I do understand it's not for me. And that's been her attitude all along. And we're talking about 4 years ago, diagnosed with stage 4 cancer with the prognosis of you won't be here long.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, 4 years ago. And when the surgery took place, she called and said that, and of course we must say this, the reason we talk about her what she's dealing with is because she's granted permission to talk about it any place, anytime. It does not matter. Okay? When she had the surgery, they told her, meaning the doctor said to her that you're going to probably end up with a colostomy bag for the rest of your life. There's no way that we're going to be able to reconnect the rectum, or the ileum, to the colon. There's not enough left. She called me and told me that. And I said to her, Carla, do you accept what they said? And she said no. I said, okay, it's done. When they did the surgery, when they went back in, rather, they saw, but they had just enough to connect. They did not have more than they needed. They had all they needed. And one of the doctors was saying, why are you going in to do this? And this is the story they shared with her. Why are you going in to do this? You know it's not going to work. And the doctor said, I don't know. I just have to do this. And he went in and reconnected. Now, what does that say? That says that we have the ability, based upon our attitude, based upon what we believe, based upon what we trust, we have the ability to change our bodies. We have the ability to sustain this body. How is it that okay, yesterday morning, I had, I guess, about a 4-ounce glass of almond milk and a cup of coffee. And I realized about 1:30 I hadn't eaten. Now that was 7 o'clock yesterday morning. And I realized about 1:30 I had not eaten. Then I forgot it again. And it was about 5:30, 6 o'clock. I was talking to Phoebe. And she says, I said, you want me to bring you something to eat? And then I realized then I had eaten. But I wasn't hungry. Now, when I think about I hadn't eaten, then I got hungry. But when I start working, when I do what I do, I'm fine. So, what does that tell me? And you've heard me say this many times, that there are more important things to do than eat.
Yes.
Yeah. What does that tell me? The food that I have, or that I eat, you know my love. The bread, when Jesus was talking to the disciples, we all have the same abilities. So, yes, the body does need the food. There's no question about that. But does it need all that we give it? Not necessarily.
No.
And I am saying to you that the awareness of who you, the more you become aware of it, the more you are able to deal with your body. And I'll get more to that in a moment.
So what does that say about America with the supersized meals and during the state fair, the fried bacon wrapped in chocolate pickled, whatever?
It says that we are killing our bodies. It's all about gluttony. See, the power of this whole thing lies in the placebo effect. That's what that's all the power is in the placebo effect. What causes someone who gets a sugar pill to be healed? Their mind, isn't it? They believe it. What causes someone to go into surgery for knee surgery and all they do is do an incision and sew it back up and tell them they did the surgery and the knee doesn't hurt anymore? And even when they tell them that, we didn't do any surgery, they say it don't matter. Whatever you did, it worked. So what is it?
That happens? People do that?
Yes, it happened.
What? Oh.
This lady did several studies on the placebo effect and the power of the mind. She was a gynecologist, and she began to see that she was doing more harm than good in terms of medicine and the way she was treating her patients. And she started studying the placebo effect. And as she studied it, she began to find out that there were more people who were self-healing or even self-curing than people have any idea of. And it led me to think about some things. And the things that led me to think about is that medicine doesn't kill you. It's a Band-Aid effect. The other week when I had the migraine, it started on a Friday the 6th of June.
That was a bad headache, boy.
And it got progressively worse in terms of the pain. And the pain was actually debilitating. So I went to bed, and I was not here that Saturday. I was not at Great New Faith that Sunday. And that Monday, it began to subside. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, what happened? The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. That's what came to me. Your body was dying. You were killing your body because you were not resting it. And it had to tell you something. Stop. You're killing me. And had the pain not been debilitated, I would have been still.
I'm about to say, I'm sure you got some messages that weren't that painful before that came.
It was. You're right. It wasn't that painful. I was riding around with a dull headache. And then once it got to the point where 1 hour was, it's time to go home. But you understand? So I I didn't do anything except rest. That's all. Sure.
It also goes to the notion that you were just mentioning a little while ago as well, as far as the indigenous people having less disease and also having the ability to heal themselves because they would have been aware of their ability to do so. While as someone who is not as spiritually inclined or has as much knowledge and understanding of themselves and what they're capable of would not be able to do the same.
And I'll give you an example of that. When the centurion's daughter died, he came to Jesus and said, no, when she was sick, rather, unto death is what it was. He came to Jesus and said, I need you to come take care of my daughter, right? Take care of my daughter. Jesus said, okay, I'm coming. He said, no, you don't have to come. I'm a leader of men. When I say come, they come. When I say go, they go. That's all you have to do. Just deal with it from where you are. And he did that. How did he do that? How did he do that? How did he do that? He did it simply by thinking. And why was he able to do it that way? Because he had the depth of an awareness of the unicity of the oneness of us all. That's how he was able to do it. When you say, do what you do, or I say to you, I do what I do, that's all it is. I think about it.
Doesn't religion say that, you know, you have to have enough faith, and like the person who needs something has to have enough faith for anything to happen?
And yeah, they do say that. And this whole idea, this whole concept of enough faith, I asked the question, I've been asking it for years, and for some reason, no one is able to give me the answer. I want them to quantify the amount of faith that it takes. I want you to tell me, how much does it take? No one can tell me that.
They didn't say anything about mustard seeds?
Huh?
They didn't say anything about mustard seeds?
Well, and I'm saying, okay, how large is a mustard seed? So if you got faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Then I don't need that much to move a hill.
Why are you messing with me?
That's why he get kicked out of class.
I mean,
It's ridiculous.
so you said that anyway, you know, it's metaphorical, saying that it doesn't matter. Now the other thing is this: how is it then that people who don't have faith can receive the same thing? I mean, tell me this: what faith did Lazarus express that he had in Jesus before Jesus raised him from the dead? Yeah, they were dead.
Well, the body was.
Yeah, know what I'm saying? So how much faith did he have?
But
But
did he even need to have faith if Jesus resurrected him? Because Jesus just Jesus up a miracle and resurrected him.
I beg your pardon?
Jesus was just Jesus up a miracle and resurrected him. It doesn't matter how much faith. Did the centurion's daughter have faith? Because do we know that? I mean, did she? Because again, Jesus just like in his house, like, all right, it's done. She's healed. Centurion's daughter could have been like rocking out to death metal with like the 666 painted on her forehead and just had some illness. We don't know that. They don't tell us that. I'm just saying.
But what they do tell us is that her dad had faith. You see, she was 12. All of these are metaphors. She was 12. The one with issue of blood had it for 12 years. Yeah, so these things are, all these things are connected. And the bottom line is this: if Jesus did it, you can do it. And if you don't believe that you can do it, that's why you can't do it. It's just that simple. I mean, we can go case after case after case after case. The bottom line is that this body does not have to suffer with sickness and disease. You can have cancer and not suffer. Carl was not suffering. You understand what I'm saying to you? You do not have to suffer. Everyone in this room, everybody on this earth has cancer in their body. The CEA count is just lower than everyone else's. Isn't it?
I don't know what that is.
It's the antigen for cancer that's in your bloodstream, that's in your body. It's there. So why is it that it doesn't increase in my body and it does in someone else's? But it's there. So the point of the matter is that regardless of what it is that someone else is dealing with, it's also in you. It really is. I do not believe, and I said again, I don't believe in generational sickness. I believe in generational habits. If you do the same thing your parents did, you're going to end up just like them. If you eat the way they ate, if you do, you can change that. See, just because something is written in your DNA, it does not mean that you can change the manifestation. That you can't change the manifestation, rather. You don't change the DNA, you change the manifestation. You change the way it manifests itself. Because the DNA is there. But you change the way it's manifested in your body. Can you see that? Now, it's been proven time and time again that we do have these abilities. And the reason we do is because we're fearfully and wonderfully made. What does all that mean? We were formed in a way to give us the opportunity to deal with this earth consciousness in every aspect. If it were not for the invasion that we talked about earlier with the Europeans and with Catholicism and all these other things, then we would not have the opportunity to be expressive of the Creator that we are. We have to get back to understanding who we are as Adam before we can talk about who we are as Elohim. No one wants to get into that. They talk about Adam the man. But there is no Adam the man in terms of the way, Christianity teaches it. Because it teaches it like Adam was a man. Like, I'm a male. That kind of man. And the separation, when the woman was taken out according to what we were taught, then Adam became still a man, and the woman was a woman. So what was he when she was in him? So it had to be something different than what we see manifested here, doesn't it? The entity Adam.
That was before they were flesh, right?
Yes. That's my point exactly. So what's the difference? And see, there is no differentiation in what people are taught concerning this creation story. There's no differentiation between the spiritual and the what we perceive to be the natural or the physical. There's no differentiation between that. No one talks about what transpired in chapter 3 when it was clothed in skin. They tell this lie about, and he covered them with lamb skin. That's where the whole Masonic BS comes from about the lambskin apron. No one talks about what the reality of it is.
But there's nothing written there about lambskin.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
And even when you go back to the original text and look up the word skin, it talks about the skin of a human or the skin of an animal. That's what it's talking about. So when it says clothe them in skin, it's talking about the skin, the actual skin. That's what it's talking about. And no one differentiates between that when they're teaching from the creation story. And then on top of that, what we're told through the American Baptist and Southern Baptist and picked up by the African American Baptist, etc., was picked up by them is that if you don't believe it, if you don't get it from the King James, it's not Bible. So if you go back and look at the original translation, then you are somehow blaspheming. I'm serious. That's what they're telling you. So it's an effort to continue to manipulate and control. Now, if we were to delve into the concept of the concept that's presented in the secret book of John, then it will rock the world for a whole lot of people, including some of us. When you start looking at what that actually says, and to me, what I read when I look at it is that what I read from the first 3 chapters is an outline. And what I see from reading the secret book of John is that the details are filled in. Do you get the same impression? Those of you who've read it.
Sheldon, have you read it?
Have you read it?
Yeah, I've read it. It gives you it gives you the backdrop of the very beginning. So it starts prior to the beginning of Genesis, and then it fills in the gaps to the story.
Yeah,
and it's quite different. Quite different.
Oh yeah.
It's the non-Disney version.
Yeah, it is. And again, I must reiterate this. I do not recommend that anyone beyond the facilitators pick that up, because it can be awfully confusing. It's difficult enough to understand, even when we talk about it, because we have discussed it, portions of it, briefly, of course. I have a feeling the next time we come together, this could probably go be the focal point. Because it does, see, this is the thing. You cannot understand how this building stays the way it is if you don't realize that it sits upon a foundation. You don't see the foundation, but it's there. That's the thing about Genesis. You can be more clear about who you are and the abilities that you possess if you can understand the foundation of who you are. What is it that precedes the thoughts that you have? How did you get to the place where you are? How did we get to the place where walls were raised and a roof was put on the building? How do you get to the division of the rooms, which is the division of thought? How do you get to that place without understanding what the foundation is? And believe you me, we have been researching and studying for years, trying to understand the Genesis story. And every time we go into it, we see something different. Not different in terms of the other was wrong, but something different in terms of building upon the foundation. That's what I'm talking about. And when you look at the whole, the essence of the life of Eve, and it talks about the Adam saying that, and her name shall be Eve because she gave me life. And you think about, well, how did that happen? You know what I got from that? When the Adam was put in a coma, put to sleep in a trance, it did not know what life was until it realized the feminine energy necessary for life. Can you see that? There is no life without the feminine and the masculine. You remember when we talked about why is it that the scripture talks about the seed and doesn't talk about the womb, or the egg rather. It talks about the seed in the womb, but it doesn't talk about the egg. You remember that? That's the principle that I'm talking about. The reason it doesn't talk about the egg is because the egg itself is a womb. Because the seed, the sperm, goes into it. It penetrates it. So the realization of that, when that realization comes into play, then the Adam said, and I'm dealing with it from a physical perspective, of course, because we don't, if you can understand it from an earthly perspective, it'll give you more insight spiritually, I believe. So the Adam is saying, what he's saying is that without the womb, there's no me. Can you see that? That's the gist of what's being said. And when we look at that, the reason Paul writes about the superior Adam, or the first Adam, it actually should be the superior Adam. It's not talking about a different Adam than the Adam that was presented. It's talking about the concept that Yeshua understood the concept of the Adam to a degree that it was able to articulate it so that mankind could become aware of who it is, and then realize that it is the Adam, the entity Adam, and then realizing that it is the entity Adam, wake up from this trance and be the image of Elohim that it was created to be. Does that make sense? Any questions about this? I feel like for some reason I'm bouncing off the wall. That I'm just talking. Am I making sense with this stuff? Now, well, I'm gonna keep going anyway.
Sheldon, was that a hand?
I don't have a hand. I'm about to watch him because I can tell he's uncomfortable, but he can't help himself.
Actually, it really isn't. It was a minute ago, but now that you said it's not. So anyway.
I was wondering for quite a while how you planning on addressing this. I said I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh, you're talking about the whole idea of the secret book of John? Yeah, okay. Nice segue, wasn't it? You know anything about baseball?
Huh?
You know anything about baseball?
A little bit.
That was not a fastball, that was my slider.
I see.
But anyway, when we look at the secret book of John, then we begin to see something else that's major. It gets into greater detail about the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. And we begin to see that the tree of knowledge and the tree of life is all about what you have an affinity for. Whether your affinity is for light or darkness, don't we? I mean, is that, do you have affinity for what's real or unreal? In other words, do you have an affinity for what's in the scriptures for truth? Or do you have an affinity for earth consciousness? The whole idea of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is about the consciousness of the earth. If it were not for earth, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, then there would be no need for us explaining. There is the tree of life, which is enlightenment. It is the truth of everything that is. It is the enlightened nature of everything that is and shall be. All right? And the tree of knowledge of good and evil is a mixture of those two.
A mixture of those two.
Light and darkness.
Okay.
I have an understanding to a degree of the light of the tree of life, but I also have free will, so I'll interpret it, I translate it, or I perceive it the way I choose to. That's the mixture. And the mixture of that, and because people do not read the scriptures, they do not see it. The mixture of that came in the garden. It wasn't no snake. That wasn't a snake. It was a perception. And the intimacy of the perception with the womb brought about this whole free will, this whole acceptance of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was an acceptance as opposed to something that was, taken from a tree and eaten. In order for you to have free will, you must have opportunity for light, and you must have opportunity for what? Darkness. Because if you don't have opportunity for either one, if you only have opportunity for one of them, then you don't have free will. Because you don't have a choice. So the knowledge of good and evil, so what is the purpose of it? Why was it good and evil? Why wasn't it just evil and light? Why? If Elohim brought into existence us in the image, right? Then, and the tree of life is what was also brought into existence in this place of peace, paradise, garden, whatever. And we need to talk about that too, what the whole garden experience is. I mean, what it means. And the Adam was brought into existence in the image and likeness, but with the free will, you got a choice. Even though I created you in my image and likeness, you don't have to function the way I function if you don't want to. Can you see that? Now that I choose not to function the way you function, now what I have done is exercise my free will, and I did not move to the tree of life. I moved to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Why? Why is that so important? Because once I'm able to bring balance to this tree, once I'm able to bring light to this tree, and the tree is not talking about that thing I did in the yard, the tree is talking about understanding. Once I'm able to untangle the confusion, once I'm able to bring order to the point where the whole of mankind enjoys and experiences this order, then what happens is that what we call earth consciousness is no longer earth consciousness, it's enlightenment. What we call the tree of knowledge of good and evil is no longer good and evil, it's the tree of life. So we are to bring life, we're to bring light to the whole. Can you see this?
You lost me somewhere in there.
Tell me where I lost you. I'm going to come back and get you.
Something happened and the tree switched or something?
No. When we bring balance, evil talks about unright.
Yeah.
Confusion. So when that order comes to that confusion, right, then there is no longer confusion. So what is it? It's enlightenment.
Right.
So that's what balances the tree of good and evil.
Okay.
That enlightenment.
So the tree of knowledge of good and evil has to do with a perception that you can, what?
Create your own God.
Right.
Be whatever you want to be. And I don't talk about Dr. Lawyer, Indian chief. I'm not talking about that. That's what it talks about. And see this
and
idea.
when you straighten it out, then what happens to that perception? You recognize that you're a part of something greater, and you can't just manipulate things and
keep it moving. Yes.
Okay.
Does that make? Can you see that now?
I think so.
Because see, I think the thing that brings about a bit of the confusion, or where I lost you maybe, is because we say good and evil, as opposed to life and death. You see,
Was that the original translation of the tree of life and death?
The original translation is ripe and unripe.
Ripe and unripe.
Yes. See, you have one opportunity for a fruit. That's when it's ripe. If you don't get it when it's ripe, it's rotten. So what does that mean? Rotten is not bad. Rotten is not evil.
It's not fit for consumption.
But it becomes fertilizer for the tree.
Right.
You see?
Right.
So it is good for something. The thing that isn't is the unripeness. Because the unripeness can make you sick. The unripeness doesn't taste right. You see?
Yeah.
So you have two choices there. You can get it when it is ripe, or you can wait. You have to wait until it reproduces itself by virtue of being rotten. You take plum and leave it on the ground. If it rots, it'll grow a plum tree. The seed will come up as a plum tree. You understand what I'm saying? So we take that and look at it. Look at the tree of life and the tree of good and evil, life and darkness. Then we bring life and death, rather. Then we understand that death is only what? What is death? Death is life without limit. Life as we know it is limited life.
Death is life without limit?
When we die from these bodies, when we leave these bodies, we are exposed to life without limits. But as long as we're in these bodies, we are limited. So what we have done, we have turned everything upside down. The thing that we fashioned as death is a limitation or end of something, as opposed to the beginning or the renewal of something. That's what I'm talking about. So did I find you?
I think so.
Okay, good. Okay, any questions about what I'm saying?
the tree of life, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, when you said it's the tree of life, is there, did you think that the Creator gave us good free will so that we finish messing up whatever we've done, we can look at the tree of life as a way to find our way back?
No. We see the tree of life as a pattern of what we are to be.
Yeah.
And it's not so much when we finish messing up something.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we finish straightening it out.
Okay.
See, this is the thing. We have to stop seeing things as a negative. Everything is designed for us to straighten, to make it good. You understand what I'm saying? But if you look at something, there are people who always see the glass as half empty, as opposed to the ones who see the glass as half full. I'm one of those eternal optimists who see the glass as half full. I believe that regardless of what you do to me, anyone else, or how evil the world may perceive you, that there's an opportunity for that seed of light to spring forth in you. And all those things that you go through is you fighting what you know the light is. You know how people, we talk about people who do things to us because that's what they're experiencing. They're fighting against the light. When you do things that bring about confusion and disorder, you are fighting against what you know the truth is. When we talk about, look at this. Why would someone push your button? Because they get enjoyment out of your darkness. Right? When they stop pushing your buttons, you start pushing theirs. How? If they can't push your button, now they're frustrated. So they have a choice now. They can leave you alone and be who they are, or they can keep doing that. Now they pushing their own buttons because you're not frustrated. I mean, because you're not, following suit. You see what I'm talking about? So we have to stop looking at it from something that is from a mess, but looking at the outcome. Have a perception of what is to be. It is like without, let me put it this way, without the crystals that's in the fluid in the inner ear, right? That's in those little right angle shaped things in your ear. Without those crystals, you don't know, or you don't know how to stand. You don't know how to balance yourself. Right? So you don't see those crystals as keeping you from falling as much as you see those crystals as keeping you balanced. See? And when we begin, and there are people who will say, tomatoes. No. This is how we have to begin to think. We have to always think in the positive realm. We have to always speak in the positive realm. We cannot afford to live in that tree of knowledge of good and evil and say, well, we got to keep from doing bad.
Yeah, I can even explain why that's extremely important. If you look at it from the point of black, then you're automatically the victim, and then you automatically not walking into or realizing and coming to the realization of who you actually are. So you're coming from the opposite end. So you're almost handicapping yourself and making it impossible for you to walk into that. It would be the same thing, and I'm only using him for an example only because he set a path for us to follow, but that's very important. Jesus would not have been able to do what he did if he approached the situation looking at the glass as being half empty. If you looked at and saw the glass as always being half empty, then this I'm joking when I say this. I'm making light of it, but this mustard seed of faith that is required, he definitely wouldn't have. Number one. Number two, he would have been very, very fearful, and that basically would have taken all the powerful, miraculous things that he did away. So it's very imperative that we do not approach life or everything, for that matter, in the glass as being half empty manner.
Oh, look at this. When you said fear, right? Fear and stress produce the same thing, cortisol. What does cortisol do? It gives you, it's flight or fright, right? It's fight or flight. And when the cortisol is produced, everything else in your immune system shuts down. Everything. The body just stops doing anything to repair itself or to keep itself from being diseased or whatever. That's with stress and fear. It prepares itself to get out of that predicament by running away from it or by fighting your way through it. So when we look at it from that perspective, if you do something because you're afraid of going to hell, or if you do something because you're afraid of what the results may be if you don't do it, now you are doing it, producing something that weakens your body, that weakens you. Can you see that? See, the hero is not the person who is unafraid. The hero is the person who overcomes the fear. And if you don't overcome the fear, what does it do? Either you run away or it paralyzes you. What does stress do? Stress paralyzes. You can get so stressed out until you don't know which way to turn. It gives you headaches. It makes you nauseated. It does all kinds of crazy things to your body, doesn't it? But the moment that you get beyond that stress, then your body becomes balanced again. So if you can take this and look at it from a spiritual perspective, then what happens is when we are stressed or when we are afraid of something, we are living in darkness.
Yeah, I saw it when you said being feared, you are lost. You have no idea where you are. You're disoriented. As far as the space, time, direction, or anything, you're completely lost and out of it. You calm down, you balance, you breathe. You're able to more so focus. You take a breath, take in fresh air. You're able to calm down, and now you almost have a sense to yourself more so than when you were extremely afraid. And it's the same thing, because when I said you're lost, that means so much. That is not a little word when I say you're lost.
And think about it. When Janice said, you lost me, right? She wasn't talking about she was someplace geographically. What was she talking about? I don't understand what you were saying. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, then you're still stuck there until some understanding comes. When the understanding comes, now all of a sudden you can move forward. The same thing happens with your body. The same thing happens with you in a spiritual sense. You have to come to a place where, and even if you don't, there are things we don't understand, but we accept them as truth. We don't understand everything. We really don't. How is it that the sun can do what it does in terms of not providing the heat? How is it the wind blows? How does the wind blow? Do you understand that?
A little.
I mean, if the earth is rotating, right, the wind should be blowing in the same direction all the time.
I don't think we're moving fast enough.
I mean, but if you think about it from that perspective, right?
Yeah.
So what makes the wind blow in different directions? Why is it? What does the quote unquote air pressure comes from? How is that? I know how it's measured, but what brings it into being? Why is it necessary for it to be the way it is? There are a lot of things we don't understand. A lot of things we don't understand.
Well, science has answers for a good deal of that.
I'm not talking about science, I'm talking about us.
Oh, okay.
Us as individuals, we don't understand. But we accept it as being a reality without necessarily having to experience it at all. I mean, you ain't been to Mars, but you believe it exists. Right?
None of us have been to Mars.
But you believe it exists.
Yeah.
So those are there are things that we accept. You don't know how the combustion engine works, but we accept that it does work. So those are so if we can do that with earthly things, how come we can't do that with spiritual things? Just believe it. The other week, when I got the text from Rick about Fred running AAU track, the first thing I envisioned was Fred and winning. Somebody who can walk with his head up and his chest stuck out and still not be arrogant. He's just Fred. And he does not believe he can lose. He does not believe that. Losing is not in his vocabulary. He don't believe it. So as a result of that, what happens? He strives and he makes it. He does it. So what makes him different than someone else? It's what he believes. It's what he believes. I get in the starting blocks and I look at the guy next to me and say, are you second or third? No, if he does not believe in himself, he just lost. And he ain't even come out the blocks yet. You see the difference? Was that arrogance? Probably. But it worked.
You used to say that to people?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Are you kidding me? Sure. I mean, that. When I play golf, that's what I do. I make a bad swing, ball go in the face, and I say to the guy, you know what? This is your opportunity, because you won't get a left. So, but what is that? What changes that? Why is it that they change? The same thing happened, you know what? If you don't believe in this, you're going to hell. Now you start vacillating about what you believe. Until you get an understanding of what's there. All I'm talking about is we are spiritual beings who don't believe in spiritual stuff. Isn't that wild? You know why we don't? Distractions. And one of the greatest distractions we have is not job, even though there's one of them. Is not money, even though that's one. One of the greatest distractions we have is intellect. Because we believe that we're supposed to understand everything and fix everything. We don't leave anything.
Aren't we supposed to understand everything?
We are, but not at the time that we think we ought to.
Okay.
I mean, look at how we have met as facilitators, right? And then all of a sudden we see something that we never saw before that we've been struggling to understand. And I always go back to the thing of adultery. When we understood it, it came just like that. But we have been struggling to understand it. And if we had allowed ourselves to get distracted by that, then we would never have understood it because we've been still looking at it stuck at that and not looking at other stuff. So when we begin to understand other things, it comes as a result of us not looking at it, but moving on to what we do understand. The whole idea of the book of the secret book of John, it came into play at the end of the session. And if it had come into play at the beginning of the session, we probably would have been still sitting there.
Yep.
Why? Because we want to see what's there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, if there are no questions or comments, I'm done. Sheldon, you got it next week?
Sure.
Okay. Okay,
I won't be here.
okay,
I
for real?
think Ramel will be.
Okay,
I feel like we got that straight a few weeks ago, but I'll talk to her.
okay. Let me say a couple of things here.
Do you want me to stop recording?
Yeah, broadcast but don't record.